So there are many reasons why we're having less food available today. Demand growth, which means simply that there is much more demand for the food that we had before. It's changing diets in many countries, such as China in particular, as they develop and the economies become more developed. There's a more of a demand for meat, for example, and we know that grain is used to feed animals, and much of that demand is then going to feed animals and not the food being consumed by people itself. And these changing diets will mean that there will be a much higher demand then for grain than there has been elsewhere because of the preference for meat as economies develop and become more sophisticated. The record prices of oil, the link between food and fuel, which I've mentioned, biofuels, increasing severe weather, and then a new phenomenon which we've seen where we have certain countries restricting trade and a tighter supply. So the world population will rise to 9 million by 2050, and at that time we'll need a 70% increase in farm production. But even now, roughly a third of the food produced today that is 1.3 billion tons, is lost or wasted, post-harvest losses, according to FAO, our sister agency monitoring food, that is global food losses and food waste. That's a very high percentage. 1/3 of the food produced is simply lost. So there are a number of areas that we can also improve on that, not simply increasing the net amount of food that's grown, because we have limited arable land in the world today. But we also have to look at how we can cut down on the amount of food wasted. In countries like the US, 1,400 calories of food per person is wasted every day. And I explained earlier that 2,100 calories is what we focus on as being a nutritional diet. If people can consume 2,100 calories per day, they're doing well. And in countries such as the US, to waste 1,400 calories per day, simply through food that's wasted on a plate, that's cooked in cafeterias and not fed, there are areas that we can improve on to help meet the need that we're going to have in a few years' time to feed the world's population. Climate change is expected to add another 10 to 20% to the total of the hungry, the total of the bottom billion by 2050, and we expect to have 24 million more malnourished children as a result of erratic weather, 21% more than without climate change. Almost half of this increase we expect, that is 10 million children, will be in sub-Saharan Africa. And keep in mind again that when you look at how these increased needs are going to be dealt with in countries such as the US, Canada, many first world countries, most first world countries indeed, have some type of access to social safety net programs or social protection programs. And over 80% of the world's population does not have access to any of these programs whatsoever. Governments are not equipped with safety nets.